Downtown San Francisco vacancies hit record high as city nears breaking point. Don't you love just these continual, the world is going to end here? And then that date comes and goes and we're all still here. And sometimes we go, I call BS. I call BS on the city nears its breaking point. Okay. But it's just meant to get you to read it. I read it. Now you're watching the podcast. What do we got going on in San Francisco? We have literally record highs of office vacancy space. And it's because we've got just kind of this perfect storm of events of, sending everybody home. Hey, it's going to be great. You guys are going to work from home temporarily because this is a temporary situation, just like inflation. And then you guys are going to come back and we're all going to be a happy family again. Well, that's not really the way that this story is turning out, is it? We've got vacancies that are higher than the .com bust. I don't know if you remember that one. I do. That was painful. That was a market that just stopped the equities markets in its track, right? Real estate what's going on? A massive slowdown. And then the Great Recession. Well, that was basically residential, but it impacted everything. We had a, just slowdown of everything. And so even during that time, vacancies weren't as high as they are in San Francisco. So this breaking point, let's get into it. Let's see. Is this really a thing? Is this going to be a thing moving forward? And I'm not usually a glass half full kind of guy, but I think the glass is half full in this case. Let's get into it. Here we go. The news and the numbers are grim for downtown San Francisco's office market, and no one can say with any certainty where the bottom is. Nobody can predict the future, right? Nobody can predict the future. But tell you what, if you think the bottom's here on commercial space, it ain't. It's way down underneath my desk here somewhere. In my opinion, I think that's what's going to happen because we've had this massive shift from work from the office to work from home. And there's this real push and pull on employees not wanting to go back. And I don't blame them. In the first quarter of the year, office vacancies were the highest ever recorded, according to real estate broker CBRE. The firm estimated a 29.5% vacancy rate last quarter, substantially higher than the .com bust and the Great Recession, and a 7-fold increase from the start of 2020. Let's that last little stat right there, 7-fold increase from the start of 2020. That is when the pandemic started. Remember that? We're starting to hear about the coronavirus in maybe October, November, December. I'll have to go back and look at one of my old podcasts, but I did a podcast when I was basically just doing real estate stuff. And it was 4 things that could slow down the real estate market in 2021. And somebody said, well, this podcast isn't going to age very well because we got this, this, and this. And the one thing that people didn't, give any validity to was this weird little virus thing going on in China at the time. And then it just exploded in our faces, right? And we had 15 days to flatten the curve. 3 years later, real estate analysts are expecting vacancies to tick up further as leases, including a major glut of shorter-term subleases, expire in the coming years. More dominoes will fall if building owners faced with lower revenues decide to hand their properties back to lenders, many of whom are already distressed regional banks. That's what I talk about all the time. This is the next too big to fail, but they're not too big. They're mid-sized regional banks. But their impact within the whole lending structure, nobody's going to let that go. Just let that guy go. It's fine. Yeah, we're going to prop up these other ones. Now, we saw what happened with Silicon Valley Bank, right? Right? Are we going to have a bunch of those more go on? Probably. Is there going to be a bailout? Probably. We'll have a turnover unlike anything in the history of commercial real estate in the next 12 to 18 months. I think that is what you've got going on right now. And it's not because, commercial real estate is just all of a sudden fallen out of favor. Hey, we don't like big commercial office buildings. Those are, they're not eco-friendly. It's nothing like that. It's their use. It's how we're using them. It's their design and use. And they're designed for having a whole bunch of people work in the downtown core. And then the whole coronavirus thing just spun that on its, we're living in the down under is what we're living in. In the downtown cores, we're living in the down under because, in Seattle, I went to the Cure concert last night. Yep. That band from the mid 80s. It was epic. It was epic people watching. What was really interesting, it was a lot of people with kids and a lot of younger people. So the Cure has made apparently a massive comeback of which I was unaware. They basically sold out Climate Pledge Arena, and it was a great show. But I met my friend in Amazon territory, and it was a Thursday night, and I was able to get parking right out in front of his office building, which is one of the main office buildings of Amazon. And we were able to walk into a restaurant, and immediately be seated. This is at 6:15 on a Thursday. It should have been jam-packed, no parking anywhere, because people are still in downtown for business meetings and going out to dinner afterwards and, all that crazy stuff that goes on in a big downtown core. But because Amazon has packed its work week into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you got now a 3-day work week. And then everybody's so excited to start their weekend and get going home that they're out of there. They're out of there. The minute they don't have to be at the office anymore, boom, they're gone. And that's only 3 days a week. So even 3-day-a-week companies like Microsoft and Amazon, they're not even really 3 days a week. About 3:00, everything empties out. There's about an hour wait for the big commercial parking garages where all the employees are, because everybody is all leaving all at once because they're so pumped to be out of there and go home because they've been working from home for 3 years and everybody said, that's what we're going to do forever. So take that multiplied by all these other cities where the exact same thing has happened. And now you've got a situation that is invariably, it's not going to end well, in my opinion. I mean, unless there's some kind of change up with what we do with office space. And that to me is, you're going to stick a whole bunch of people in office space and try and convert it into residential. And you can try, go ahead, give that a whirl. Let me know how that goes. And let me know how that affects the infrastructure of your downtown. Let me know if that makes up your tax base. Yeah, I'll take a look at that. Don't do it in my city, but I'll look at another. You want to do that in Atlanta or somewhere? Go for it. Hey, I'll watch. That's watching the train wreck from afar, right? We'll have a turnover like anything in the history of commercial real estate, unlike anything in the history of commercial real estate in the next 12 to 18 months. I believe that to be true. Swimming and subleases. An analysis by the real estate. I know this stuff sounds boring. And it kind of is, but it's the basis for, I think, a lot of what is going to happen moving forward. And we talk a lot about what's going on in the downtown cores. And this is that. I mean, we've had all this policy in these blue cities that has just kind of allowed things to run amok. And now you've got the office buildings that have been emptied out and they can't fill them back up. And so now your tax structure, ability for the city to generate tax revenue, is even further depleted. And so it's the doom loop we talk about, right? So analysis by the real estate firm Cressa found that the San Francisco metro market is unusual in the amount of sublease space on the market. Much of that is driven by big tech firms. I talked about it on a podcast yesterday. Google is giving up 1.4 million square feet. A lot of that in Mountain View, San Fran, 1.4 million square feet. Here you go. We don't need it. A lot of it's space that's never been occupied. New space, never been occupied. We don't need it. You guys can take it. Here you go. Have it. So much of the sublease is driven by big tech firms, which occupied huge campuses before the pandemic, later putting space back on the market as employees opted to work from home. And now CEOs are saying, well, you did opt to work from home for a while, but no, I need your ass back in the office. And that's what they're doing. So even this past week here in Seattle, had a couple hundred people, employees of Amazon, they did a walkout at noon. And what was interesting is that the walkout at noon was during the lunch hour. Interesting. Hey, you walked out. No, I didn't. I went to lunch. Went to lunch with a couple hundred of my friends there in the courtyard down in front of one of the big Amazon buildings. What of it? Walkouts. In terms of the percentage of overall office inventory available for sublease, San Francisco has the highest of any metro area. It's got the most tech workers. It's the biggest city with the most tech workers. They all work from home. They bought homes elsewhere. They said, F it. If we're going to have to, if we're working from home, I'm getting a bigger house because I can afford it. Some of the money that these big tech companies pay out is incredible. I mean, it's literally like mind blowing. It's like why people get into tech. Well, I can buy my first house. I can pay off my college student debt. I can really stock stuff away for, a future. I might only have the job for 2 or 3 years because a veteran at an Amazon is like a 4-year long employee. 5 years, you're an old man. You are over the hill. They're going to put you out to pasture. They're going to give you your 5-year gold Rolex and out you go because you can't contribute anymore. San Francisco really became a tech market, so we had an over-reliance on the one industry that most readily adapted and embraced remote work, said Mark Giesreiter, an executive managing director at commercial real estate company Newmark. Last year, the top 10 subleasers were all big tech companies. They no longer need the space. The space isn't going to be utilized. Down the road, it's not going to be utilized. It was meant for employees in an office scenario. That's really not something you can convert. I don't think we ever kind of figured, we never penciled in. What if a global pandemic happens and everybody goes to work from home and then people don't want to come back? What I've worked out is that, so people that went home from work, they realized, okay, now I no longer have to commute. Even if you're doing a suburban commute from somewhere over here behind me to the east of me in Bellevue, over to downtown Seattle, where a lot of the jobs are, you're going to spend an hour each way. That's 2 hours out of your day. So now they no longer need to do that. And then on top of that, they're going to get their entire workday done in probably a couple hours, right? Maybe 3. You got some kind of intensive job, maybe 4. But then the other 4 hours of your day or the other 6 hours out of your day, you're doing whatever you want at home. You're answering the phone if need be. You're on the computer if need be. But I think so many people have realized the 4-hour work week is a reality and they're doing it. Not a 4-hour work week. If you've read that book, I have, because I thought it was great. It was a massive oversimplification of, what you can do, but it makes sense. Now it's maybe is it the 16-hour work week? Something like that. Is it that 8-hour work week? I don't know. Some along those lines, though, for those people who can do that. And there's a lot of jobs where you got to show up, got to be there, got to show up. So then you got these Amazon employees that we don't want to show up. It's like, okay, you guys are spoiled. Just go do your job, get paid your millions of dollars. Subleases in particular often offer rent discounts because somebody's already tied it up and they don't need it and they're going to have to discount it to get rid of it. More flexible lease terms and lower costs to get the office ready for occupancy. It's usually taken just kind of as is, right? Or maybe it hasn't even been built out yet. And so the existing company with the rent's going to offer to kind of help out with the build out, tenant build out and all that. But that doesn't mean sublease offers are flying off the shelves. Derek Daniels, research director at Collier's real estate company, said that sublease space would typically be on the market for 5 to 6 months before being snapped up or pulled off. Okay, 5 or 6 months. That's long, right? But as long as you can get it off your books and you're a company that's capitalized, okay, you're going to have enough money to pay, the 5 or 6 months worth of rent. But throughout the pandemic, that time is dragged out to about 14 months today. So then that 14 months goes to 24 months when all this stuff is dumped on it, or something longer than 14 months, right? That would be safe to say. The current office subleases in San Francisco have an average term remaining of about 3 years. That means that's what's on the lease relative to when it was originally started. Once they expire, the spaces would become vacant unless reoccupied, as leases do, right? Cresa data shows that around 4 million square feet of office space will have subleases expire by the end of 2025. So you've already got 18 or 20 million square feet on the market right now. Google just dumped another 1 point whatever. Now you got another 4 million coming on in, well, we're halfway through 2023. In another 18 months. You're going to have another 4 million square feet come on. What's the absorption rate between now and then? It ain't that much. So, you're going to have a whole bunch of space sit on the market. And what's that do for rents? Yeah, it drops them down. And then what's that do for commercial values? Yep, drops them down. We're in a higher interest rate market right now. Even if values do come down and interest rates come down, how many of those based on income stream, which, affects the capitalization rate, which impacts the valuation, things are not going in the right direction, period. That's just bottom line. We're expecting things to continue to get worse before they get better. That is probably an accurate statement. It's also an open-ended statement, right? I think it's going to get worse. All right. Why? That's kind of what we're talking about. Adding the economic trends like growing unemployment and federal interest rate hikes are also contributing factors. Yes. And those will be factors, but the underlying thing is that companies aren't taking down massive amounts of office space. The big companies like Google are giving it up. They're giving it back. And it floods that market, got oversupply, rents come down. It's just that vicious cycle, right? Real estate sources said that while tenant interest was starting to recover at the beginning of the year, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank put a freeze on a lot of companies' plans because that's where the tech companies got their financing. That was a tech company bank, essentially. A regional bank, right? For commercial landlords, continuing vacancies could lead to a breaking point. With refinancing growing more difficult, there are signs that some landlords are deciding that owning real estate in San Francisco is no longer worth it. I think those are something's going to happen where things turn back around. It always does. Maybe you're going to have to be a landlord with deep pockets. Maybe you're going to have to be a landlord who's got the office building paid off and you just hang in there and you get that, last man standing award. Yeah, I made it. I'm the only guy around. Yeah, just totally beat up, but I'm the only guy around. You get rewarded for that, right? Is that going to happen? Now, downtowns aren't going to go away. Downtowns are not going away, but they're changing dramatically. And I think we're going to have a pricing structure that reflects that. A prime example was real estate firm Redco Development and its investment partner AEW Capital Management walking away from the historic 1 Montgomery Street building that they purchased for $84 million in 2019. I think we'll see more of owners saying, this doesn't make sense anymore. I can't pencil this. I'm going to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure and give the property back to the lender, said Jana Luce, managing principal at Cressa. Okay, so they bought it in 2019 for $84 million. It's probably dropped a bunch in value. Interest rates have gone up. They don't have a refinancing option. Who knows how much down they had, how much, maybe it's in their best interest to walk away. Sometimes that is the best game plan. It's kind of like bankruptcy. At some point, for whether it's a company or an individual, that might be the best option given the circumstances. I don't know what the circumstances were on that one. And that's also a really recent purchase, right? So that was probably at the very high end of values. Now we know it was. And then you've got to drop from that. But not everybody bought their building in 2019, right? You got people that hold these buildings forever. And so not everything is going to be rocked like that, but the overall commercial picture is getting rocked because there's not enough tenants to go around for the space. And so if you're going to have to chase that rent down, you can't have a rent that's super high. Nobody's going to look at it. So you got to bring it down. You got to chase it on down. And so it's that oversupply of available space that, brings the rent price down, brings the value down. And now you got a scenario where the city is generating way less revenue because you got less businesses in town doing business. You got less people working in those buildings. And like I said with Amazon, now you've got employees coming in, not on Friday at all. So all those businesses that, rely upon Amazon to be there, Monday, they're doing nothing. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they're doing some business. But people aren't hanging around downtown like they used to because they want to get back to their laundry. They've been at home for a number of years and they're totally digging it. They want to get back to their families, such as they are, whatever they might be, right? But no, they don't want to be at the office. They've been spoiled with not being at the office. And that's what they're going to go do. So they are no longer doing that hang out in downtown thing, even on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because then Friday comes ghost town. Downtowns are ghost towns. These are the towns that have heavy tech workers. Now, other cities that are not as tech reliant, it's a different game, but also all companies basically just went and worked from home, right? So all companies are going through this shift of, do we need this office space? Oh, we don't. We're still able to do what we need to do. And we have remote workers. Oh, okay. Well, let's get rid of that office space because we figured this out. Or there's a reduction in office space requirement. Okay. We've got XYZ coming to the office each week. Then we're all going to need this space and we're going to figure out how to make this work. And so then that other 500,000 square feet of office space that we thought we needed, not so much. Boom, put that back on the market. Got to drop that price to get it moved, right? And it's going to take a while. Gap Incorporated sold its building at 1 Harrison Street to the Sobrado organization for around $80 million in February, which real estate experts say was around a 40% haircut compared with what the building would fetch before the pandemic. So that is now a comparable sale. And that is what, the multipliers are going to be based on. And, when your comps start to get reduced like that, this is what you got going on. Not saying this is going to happen across the board, but data is data, right? Data is data. There's going to be that trend of, this is not going in the right direction. And why would it? We don't have this enormous drive to get everybody back in the office. It's going the other way, right? It's this slow grind of trying to get employees who, aren't going to do a walkout on a Wednesday at lunch. Yeah, we're battling that, right? Another possible sale that could set new precedent is the Union Bank building at 350 California Street. I talked about this. Sources say bids for that building have come in at around a quarter of its $250 million pre-pandemic value. Okay, so that's its valuation. Say it was $200 million. And I believe this building went for somewhere between 60 and 67,500 million. Did that number make any sense at all? 67,500,000. Because that other number, that doesn't exist. That's not a number. Remember, I'm a real estate guy, not a mathematician. So in a sign of the current state of the market, those offers are currently being entertained. And I believe that building went for a massive reduction in price. Massive. There's growing concern that real estate troubles could further damage regional banks already battered by the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank last month. So what happened there? Now, Silicon Valley Bank had its little, this isn't good. And so then, all the other people who had deposits in similar type banks are looking at Silicon Valley Bank going, oh God, we don't want that to happen to our money. So I guess we should pull out. And they have, and they placed their money with banks other than regional banks that lend a lot on commercial real estate. So there's a liquidity issue, right? There's a liquidity issue. Those banks are being stress tested by the marketplace. We no longer desire to have our money with you. We're going to move our money over to here. Commercial real estate finds itself in the eye of a perfect storm. Not only are regional banks a major lender in commercial real estate, but they're also the largest buyer of agency, which are commercial-backed securities. So the very sector that's being impacted is regional bank, and they're already kind of on the ropes. And what we're saying is this could go wildly sideways. What is going to interrupt the downward progression of this? I mean, all of a sudden, employees want to go back to work in the office? No. We find a magic cure for converting space into something else? No. So what's it going to be? You're going to have a bunch of time to work it out. And that time, things are going to go down. So, yeah. Report from MSCI Real Assets found that nearly $900 billion worth of commercial loan debt is coming due over the next 2 years. And building owners received about 27% of their financing from local and regional banks in 2022. And interest rates are much higher now than when a lot of those loans were put together in the first place. So we talk about having a refinance boom in residential real estate. Every time interest rates get dropped, refinance boom. I should have said refinance boom. But we'll have another one of those when rates drop from, what are they now? 6.25, 6.5, whatever they are, 6.75, 30-year fixed. When that drops down to 5, you're going to have a lot of folks come through and refinance because they've been forced based on interest rates where they are today. If they have to buy a house, if they have to do something, I'll take that rate today, get my house locked in, and then I'll refinance it when rates drop. That's been the mantra, right? That'll happen at some point. So, real estate insiders are worried about a scenario where scores of building owners give up their properties to banks who are forced to realize these losses on their books when they go to sell them off. I think there's a lot of concern out there that the banks may have survived the interest rates going up and their investments getting locked in at lower rates, but the other leg of the stool may be commercial real estate, said a longtime real estate broker. I think that's happening in front of us right now. Just like I think we're in the midst of a recession right now. It's a soft landing recession, right? But, we've got some data. We've got some jobs data that's come out and it said, hey, there's a lot of jobs being created. So we've still got some of this stuff that is reflecting higher inflation because we pump trillions of money through the economy. And that's kind of just what happens. So, we're battling the Fed, continually bumping up rates. In their next meeting, will they do another bump? If we got enough data like the jobs report we just saw, they probably will. And that'll kind of further extend out how long the Fed's going to try and battle inflation by monkeying with the interest rates. That's effectively what they're doing. For real estate, yeah, it's done a very good job at slowing the market. But real estate, for residential real estate, we needed that to happen. Market was just on fire, and it was a big component of that inflation. And so the market can't be on fire forever. That means values are continually going up. And then you get to a point where, nobody can afford them. And then when you take interest rates and tweak them from 2.75 up to 6.5, let's see, it costs what at 2.75, and then it costs what at 6 something? Good Lord. It's damn near double my payment. It's way more. What happened? I shouldn't say damn near double, but it's a lot more. It's like makes this payment seem really cheap. And this one, at the current rates today, 2023, June, not quite so enticing. So on top of all this, you got a bunch of homeless people and crazy people running around San Fran. Same thing in downtown Seattle. So you're battling not only economic forces, but you're battling physical local forces and policy forces that have created a situation where people especially don't want to deal with the downtown core of a Seattle near the Blade, or San Francisco near the Tenderloin, or LA near Skid Row. Yeah, folks don't want to deal with that. So that office space is kind of like, why would we deal with that when we've got sublease everywhere else that we can choose from? That's going to create even more of kind of a downward progression. And it'll be a wild, scenario to kind of watch play out in real time. But that's where we sit right now, is there's a ton of office space. And this is not just San Fran. This is most major commercial real estate markets, downtown cores. You know where real estate commercial has done pretty well? In the burbs. The burbs. Because that's where everybody is. That's where everybody's working. That's where people are going to now. It's Thursday, 3:00, Amazon. Got to go home. Got to get out of here. Got to go home. Want to be with the dog. Want to get that load of laundry from the washing machine into the dryer. It's been 5 hours. Got to get home. There's that whole thing. Whereas before it used to be, hey, let's go hang out. And now people are like, no, I got to get home. I got to tend to my flowers. I got to go do whatever. And it's not in the downtown core. And I don't think everybody anticipated that as a major, major thing that's happening right now, but it's happening. It's happening in real time. We're watching that happen in real time. So make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, because I'm covering these topics. This is what we're talking about. This is what we're covering. Oftentimes it's like policy that makes, a city undesirable, like Portland and everything that's gone on there. But sometimes it's some economic forces as well, or policy on a national basis, like, sending everybody home to work from home that can, stuff like that. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, we did this action. Here is the end result. Oh, that's not good. We're going to have a crash of commercial real estate. Not good. Didn't see that one coming. Well, some people have kind of been watching that going, let's get out the popcorn. Let's see how this bad boy ends, because it's not going to be pretty. It's that, inevitable train wreck. All right, I think it's going to crash. It's a matter of when. And that's what we're sitting on right now with commercial real estate, in my humble opinion, as a residential real estate guy. Thanks again for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.